So welcome back to another episode of The Talk. This time we're going to be on the topic of 90s and 80s anime gore, right?
Yes.
Alright,
Maybe little sevens, just cause. Dude, it's the North Star, man. OG.
Oh my
OG,
God,
Warriors all get out.
I've actually seen the OVAs of Fist of the North Star, and oh my god.
Can I use bad words? Do you mind?
Go ahead, I literally don't care.
Holy fuck, the gore. Oh my god. The random multiple pressure point attacks and people just exploding a second later after he drops his one-liner. They did, I think the movie was in the 80s though. The TV show was in the 70s. The 80s they made Kenshiro more empathetic. The TV show followed the manga more, and he was a dick. It wasn't like, I've been wronged, I must do the right thing, and these deaths are necessary. He seemed to take a great deal of pleasure in setting people up in such a way where they're about to die, and he has to say something to them before their head explodes or the ribcage ruptures.
So you mean the reason that he beat the fat guy and literally says, your time is already up, fat, as you're gonna die.
Well, I think he took some pleasure in the fact there was a delayed effect. They have this moment where they thought they were going to be okay, and then boom. One that stood out from it was the first episode of the show, and it was actually right at the first episode of the manga, if I recall correctly. One of the lesser lieutenant bad guys is he's some big guy. They're all like mutants. They're all like 8 feet tall, and Kenshiro's merely 6 foot and jacked. And he had, like,
How do you even get that big buff when there's like less food in the
Exactly, you would
apocalypse?
think, man, those guys were gigantic. They were all like super roided out. Apparently, there was like one factory cranking out protein powder still in existence. Like in some city, they got passed over by the apocalypse. Well, this dude had like claws on his hands that were pretty crazy, and like he hit him in these pressure points that made him fold backwards in half. And it's like, well, if you don't tell me what I want to know, your muscles are going to break your own spine, which is actually kind of cool stuff. And it's borderline plausible, like causing muscle contractions that would destroy your joints, which can happen. And the guy's like, you know, oh, cool, I told you what you need to know, let me go. He's like, nope, I lied. The guy breaks his own back. The other guys where he hits with a pressure point on the side of the head, their entire skull just erupts. That's a bit much, but I don't know.
It's Fist of the North Star. Nothing's a bit much.
100 crack fist of the North Star.
I think that's like everybody's most favorite attack and most recognizable, which is 100 fists, 100 net cracked
Yeah,
fists.
I mean, he's like, just blurs through like 40 guys and they all explode. But
I
that
think-
was OG though.
I think Ray might have had the worst one out of all, because he was just basically using his entire fingers just as blades and cutting through people.
Oh yeah. Then the first guy, first time you see him in the movie at least, is like the dude misgenders him. He's like, what? He's like, I thought you were a girl. It's like, I could wear nice colors like purple and not be effeminate if I want to. So I mean, it was very, very progressive and forward thinking. As a guy misgendered him, so he cut him to pieces. You know, I don't know. Then what is it? Kenshiro's arch nemesis, the blonde guy. From
Oh, Shin?
yeah.
Everybody has
Oh,
one.
no, Shin was his brother who pretended to be him, right? With the mask.
I think that was
Jaggy.
Jaggy is his brother.
Okay, so Shin was the dude that was his BFF who ended up taking his
GF.
Yeah. Some acronyms there. But yeah, you feel like the 7 scars on him and rammed his fingers into his gut. It's a really intimate way to end things. Like, why not just punch him? But
Because his style doesn't require punching.
it's just poking.
It's just poking and slicing.
Do you remember Invader Zim with the poke of doom?
Oh, God.
I want Jordan Vasquez to actually make that kung fu movie. Just, I don't know where he's at or what he's doing. I hope he's well, and I hope he has some free time and can do the poke of doom kung fu movie. Because I will pay good money to watch that. I would buy that on DVD. Cause I'm old.
Oh, God, that'd be great.
Where's random things? I keep seeing it, like this clip.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally found the anime it's from, which was surprisingly like cuddly and like all the characters are kind of geeky. It was like a 70s or 80s one. But the clip I saw, like this guy's in spacesuits and they're in this like space station. There's a firefight going, and this one guy busts like a rocket launcher and shoots it. And it's one of those things where it kind of looks like it'd be like, oh, they're shooting, no one actually gets killed. One of those things. But this little kid he's with, for some reason, there's that throwaway little kid character. I'm like, oh, nothing will happen to him. He peeks over the barricade, and it's just something.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen that one.
It's just the head's gone.
And
Holy Jesus!
I was traumatized at that one.
Well, I went and I hunted down the anime. I don't know what it's called off the top of my head, but I hunted it down, and it ended up being like, I thought it was gonna be like super hardcore, like really gory, cutting edge sci-fi for the day, and it was like goofy, like really, really like all borderline slice of life goofy, like anime cliches, like the script's not very fleshed out. It was cringy, but they had this gunfight. One of the kids in there just gets his head blown clean off, and then his body hangs for a brief moment, and then.
I gotta say, one of the ones that I thought was the most gory when I was growing up was Ninja Resurrection. I'm sure you've seen that one.
Jesus! Was there supposed to be two of those? I saw one of them.
Yeah, there's actually two parts of the one where the war begins and after the war, what happened.
I don't know if I saw the second one. I remember they got these rumors. This is like early 2000s when I saw that. Like I heard rumors from other anime fans I was friends with before like the internet was as robust a source of information as it is today. Of unbiased, unvarnished, verifiable information. But I remember my buddy Wayne's like, yeah, they got their asses sued by the dudes who did Ninja Scroll because it was way too close to Jubei Kibagami. So the dude with the eye patch was like the great value brand Jubei, basically. But the dude, a guy cuts his own finger off and it crawls up in that girl at one scene. Like, oh my god!
I didn't know what was going on when I was a kid. I just saw that, I'm like, okay, this is something new.
When I watched that, I'm like, oh god, what's going on here? And that dude was like, there was like that dragon made out of like stone and tile.
Oh,
like,
yes.
I was riding it with no arms.
Yes, that was great.
I mean, that's I'm all for that. I'm here for that. But yeah, the dude like, old man cuts his finger off and it crawls around like, ooh, spooky. And then it crawls up in that girl. I'm like, okay, inappropriate. No one consented to that. Like,
Well, what was the reason for that in the first place?
some kind of curse. I have to go back and watch that. Like I saw that.
It's actually on YouTube, believe it or
15,
not.
16. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that today. But that was like 15, 16 years ago or more. Wait, that was 01. I saw that. 19 years ago.
Yeah,
It's
so,
like that movie could have graduated high school and joined the army by now. That was old, and now I'm officially old.
I think another one that I really much enjoyed. I'm not sure if we count this one as gore. You ever seen the movie Spriggan?
Oh yeah, that was a fun one.
Oh yeah.
Definite departure from like I guess more mainstream anime art style. Like it almost looked Western, but not. Kind of dynamic use of like I would say surrealism, but where they would bend lines of objects, like distort them on purpose to imply movement and dynamic interaction, for lack of a better term. Also, if I recall correctly, there was like some giant dude who had a Gatling gun and
Yeah.
got a helicopter, and he's like, nope, not today. And then there was like these arcs, and they kind of get into some kind of weird, like really, really high concept sci-fi.
Religious kind of stuff.
Yeah, like there's arcs and there's like different versions of life, and as they're going through that, like
And there's like dinosaurs and even different kind of creatures that
Yeah.
nobody would ever think of.
and some that were definitely like they just didn't roll that out. They were designed for a different biome or something. That's getting to like almost like 60s and 70s, like the more hardcore, like golden age.
I think they were going for more sci than more fi now.
Yeah. I mean, you get the like Larry Niven stuff in the 70s. Which, side note, if anyone is interested and you talk them into this, like doing an anime adaptation of the stories of Louis Wu and Ringworld could be awesome, because you just kind of expand the whole deal with the protector class humans and how ridiculous that would get, and then you'd have all kinds of misadventures on the Ringworld with the different speciated humans running around. Side note, I got those books hard copy here if you want to borrow.
Ooh,
They're
it actually sounds like a pretty good read.
Yeah,
Actually.
they're fun. He did another one that was like almost a prequel. He's kind of retired, but he did like a prequel one with somebody co-wrote it with him.
Mm-hmm.
Just wasn't the same. I picked it up, couldn't finish it. It didn't grab my attention. But like the first 3 Ringworld novels were just freaking bananas. War aplenty. One of the subspecies of humans on the Ringworld, they've evolved to the point where they're not intelligent. Like they're cunning, but they're not intelligent, and they're vampires. But they seduce people with pheromones, and there's like lots of gore and lots of weird freaky deaky, little bit of freaky deaky there. But
Like, are we talking about like a lot of gore and freaky deaky, like heavy metal version freaky
they,
deaky?
they drink a lot of blood. They will seduce people. They like sexually imprint other humans or other humanoids.
Oh my god.
And then like so they enslave them, and how they keep them in line is the whole carrot and stick thing. They don't show them the stick, well they do, but like there's a lot of carrot action. You know what I mean? There's like here have a reward, but then they slowly exsanguinate them over time with this bite them, drink their blood. But like they don't do well with bright sunlight. It doesn't kill them, but sunlight is not their thing. They tend to hide in like dark places. But it's the ring world, so there's not a proper night. It's like a giant. Think of like Halo. Halo got the idea from this. Instead of it being just a disc or a ring, in space orbiting a gas giant like in Halo, it's a gigantic ring with a star, like an Earth type, like Sol type star, a main sequence star, in the middle, and the ring is 93 million miles in radius. So the inside is habitable by humans, but to make sure it doesn't overheat, so the night cycle, there's an inner ring of these giant, basically like shades, these panels, and these things are like, what, a million miles thick or wide, or whatever to call them, and they block out the sun, so it causes a day-night cycle. And the interior of this whole thing, if you do the math on it, which he did, has a surface area of 3 million habitable planets, but where it's always summer. And it gets into weird stuff, like super weird stuff. But I don't know. You should read that. I won't read it for you. But again, once you read it, think about that being an anime adaptation of like the first crew going to the ring world.
I can definitely see that happening.
A lot of room for expansion. But again, Larry Niven, old school sci-fi writer. I don't know if he'd be on board. I mean, he's like 80 years old, so yeah, that sounds kind of crass, but like his estate might actually make the call for him, or his kids. I don't know. They might be like, "Hey, granddad."
Well, I mean, it could be like the same situation with LOTRD.
Yeah.
Or LOTR. I don't know
Yeah.
what the D in there.
Lotor. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, what's his nuts? Tolkien's eldest son
Yeah, I believe so.
wasn't actually on board for the movies and hated them.
Really?
Yeah.
That is surprising.
Yeah, because those are good. I mean, granted, I read The Hobbit and I read the trilogy. I didn't read I can't pronounce it. It starts with a C. The whatever it's called. I don't want to butcher it any more than I already have. But I think the movie adaptations, at least for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, was a good adaptation, and it made up where Tolkien was weak as far as writing battle sequences. Like, he didn't do action very well. Now, the Hobbit adaptation, turning a 300-page novel into three-hour freaking movies with an unnecessary love triangle. And
I
not
mean,
all the
there
dwarves
was
were
really
great.
no necessary love triangle. Like, it didn't need to be in there.
Yeah.
It made no sense, honestly, when I first saw it.
Yeah. I mean, granted, the actress in question they added into the film is amazing. It needs more action roles. But plot-wise, it didn't make any sense. It felt like bad erotic fanfic. And how they had like half the dwarves were like dashingly handsome guys who like usually do soap operas. I'm like, nah. There should have been like a bunch of Gimli and Gotrek looking dudes. Like surly, bearded, baby Jack. By all means, Jack. Looks like they can bench press a Volkswagen because they're freaking dwarves. Not like dashingly handsome man, brooding good looks. I'm like, bro, really, bro? Like, I took Adrian to go see the first one in the theater, and we're all excited about it because she's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. We were watching the trailers, and they're all like these supernatural teen romance movies that came out in like the wake of the Twilight series.
Oh god, I
Like,
remember all that.
The sci-fi one that she also wrote, and it was like really cheesy sci-fi, really over the top. Like she's an alien, or she's possessed by an alien, but she loves him so much that her real personality shines. It was super cringe. We watched all these trailers. I'm like, okay, this is a little ominous. And then the movie starts, and I see the actors. I'm like, he's too pretty, and he's too pretty, and he's too pretty. That looks like a dwarf, but he has exactly 0 lines so far. Like, it kind of went downhill fast. But that, like the whole Schmeagle thing, what should have been a pivotal part of the story from the book, the original animated adaptation, that whole like battle of wits between Bilbo and Gollum was like, boom, done, it's over. Like it was like, 5 minutes. And it should have been like this pivotal point in the book or in the film. So they took a 300-page book, They dragged it out into 9 hours of footage, but they took this pivotal moment from the original source material and they cut it down to 5 minutes. And I'm sorry, that was one colossal caffeine-fueled tangent. Bloodborne anime. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't really mind about like getting off derailed. Sometimes we do it in the podcast, but you know things just happen because we like on other stuff. Spriggan was like one of those ones that I went back and watched because as a kid I thought they were great. Then when I went back to watch them, like okay, now I kind of see some of the problems that people give with it.
You go back, you see problems in like the plot or in the execution, but then you also sometimes see like more depth to things, like things I didn't really appreciate at the time. So I was like, I was there for gore explosions, and there might have been some, but like Wings of Onyami. You ever seen that one?
No, I've not seen that.
I need to go back and watch that. When I watched it in high school, and high school for me was 1990, so many moons ago. The animation quality was superb, but it was slow. It was really freaking slow. There's a lot of existential dialogue, expository dialogue, covering existential, fundamental questions of being human. I was there for explosions and like world building, right? Like an alternate history things. It's set in like tech level, roughly equivalent to like 1950s, because it's a space race, the first jet fighters and whatnot. They had the last 30 minutes was like non-stop freaking action, and it was slick. I need to find that again. I need to go back and watch it again as an old man with gray hair and appreciate like what they were trying to do. But I mean, again, just if you just watch, you're just there for the explosions and action. Watch the last 30 minutes of it, because there's one action sequence earlier in the film that I can recall, maybe two, and then the last half hour is one non-stop, gigantic, a bunch of related action sequences going on across an entire like warfront, and it's nuts. It is freaking nuts. But yeah, at the time, like I was the first 2/3 of the movie. I'm like, okay then. So, you know, I think I rented that at Blockbuster when they had a
Oh
VHS.
god, Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Blockbuster and videos and
Yeah.
oh god.
Hollywood Video was pretty awesome. They had a better anime selection. I remember getting like a Ninja Scroll from. This actually what got me really interested in anime was Ninja Scroll. They showed a clip of it on like MTV had like a marathon on a Saturday, like late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah, MTV was kind of like one of those channels that had like those one special hours of showing like a certain anime or even showing like somewhat of a movie.
Yeah, this is in the 90s, man. They had Liquid Television, which was like cutting edge animation, kind of edgy, borderline not okay for daytime cable. Like Aeon
Like
Flux.
Skinamax.
Yeah. Oh, people wearing G-strings and dry humping. That was terrible. But the clearly showed a Ninja Scrolls that opening sequence, that opening action sequence where those ninjas get ambushed in the trees by what was his name? The big stone dude. What did like blood?
Tasai. That's
Yeah,
Tasai.
Yeah, he just like took out all these dudes, and they're throwing ninja stars. It looks like gunfire. There's so many coming out. They cut down trees with them. But he killed so many dudes. It literally rained blood in that forest. And I think it was maybe 15, 16 at the time when I saw that. Because the movie came out in like 93, and it was a couple of years after its release. I was there with my buddy Rob, and we're just like, holy shit, did you just see that? And we actually pestered Rob's mom, and so she took us to Blockbuster. And it wasn't, I think at the time it wasn't there, and we knew they had it, their copy was checked out. So we had to wait, and we had to get our hands on that. And there's some inappropriate stuff, like trigger warning type of stuff. There is an uncomfortable amount of rape in that movie.
Oh, like a lot?
Yeah, and but the thing is, it's in the context of it's being committed by evil people, and it's not like a passe thing, like, oh, it's no big deal. It's like, it's being depicted as one of the most horrible things you could do to another human being, which it is. So it's done in an appropriate context by people that are, by any metric, monsters, both in their actions and as a person, like this knowledge, the 8 devils of Kimon. But that dude, like, he's sneaking into the village, his love interest, his comrade in arms, gets backstabbed literally by Gemma, who's disguised as the Chamberlain. And then instead of just like him going, crap, we gotta sneak in there and get him now, he kills everybody, which threw me for a loop because Western. Well, okay, some 80s movies would have been killing everybody, but most late 80s, early 90s Western are they're more quote unquote realistic.
Yeah.
Where the guy has to sneak in. He's like, he can't fight all these guys. He's got to be covert about it. He's got to sneak in. He's got to ambush the bad guy at the right time or come back with reinforcements or have a distraction.
Or if you're in the Django movie, you just pull out a minigun out of a coffin and you just start busting bullets out.
But see, that would have been a great equalizer. Instead, this guy just like yells this dude's name, whips out his sword, and proceeds to fight who knows how many hundreds of ninjas come like just tearing up like after him. This like long running street battle, and he like hacks him to pieces. And they show a lot of it, and they also kind of tease the imagination by having these scenes where like you hear him fighting in the distance, and there's like inside the buildings, there's like guys whose eyes are open, they're clearly dead. One guy's got a sword and stabbed into a wall, and he's like hanging there by it. And he's sitting there with like his own sword in him, like body parts, like displaced weapons. So they really go for that. Like they went all out, which to me again was just this like sanity blasting game changer. Like you couldn't do that. But they did it. Like they didn't give a fuck.
It was actually very good, nice action from like the middle to the end of it. And I think the ending battle between Juve and what was his name again? Gemma.
Yeah, the guy who brings him back from the dead.
Essentially, and how he just for good 5, actually maybe 2 minutes, beat the hell out of Juve.
Oh yeah, I mean he got his ass kicked. He walked out with a broken arm, probably broken ribs. He was coughing up blood from getting punched. Like that's a serious thing. If you get hit in the gut and you're spewing blood, with that tech level, there's a good, by rights he should have died.
Yeah.
That's like nowadays that happens at trauma center. Like I saw recently, these guys that supposedly do kung fu that do all those like iron body skills.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of it. Usually it's theater. Like they time it. It looks more intense than it really is. This guy was trying to show us like iron heart technique. He had a cinder block on his stomach. Another guy hits it with a sledgehammer, breaks, but he goofs up like something went wrong. And the dude, like the clip ends, the guy is like throwing up blood. He's on his back, kind of listing. His gut's like caved in, and he's vomiting blood. He's kind of a chubby dude, but his gut and his lower ribs are like collapsed. And he drops the cinder block, and he's just like throwing up like dark, thick, oozy blood. And, like that guy's done. He's tired. So, anyways,
I think also like one of the things that Desai had done as a little kid while watching. At first, when I was like, okay, this is not bad. But when I went back and I thought, I'm like, oh god, that's horrible. When he tore off the arms of one of the ninja captains and proceeded to drink it.
Yeah, that was like some like.
That's like metal.
Vampire,
right?
Yeah, that's like vampire movie stuff right there. That's like vampire want to get down with like they're evil and destructive and horrifically violent. Like the blood dragons from the old Warhammer Fantasy, just violent. Not like, ooh, I'm wearing formal attire and I shall seduce you with my manners. It's like I've come here to cut people to tiny pieces and drain them of their vitality. The line for death starts here. But go back to Gemma. The dude like. The end, the more I thought about it years and years later, even like he didn't just kill him. They were implying that because he cut off his arm, he's like encased in like molten gold that then solidified. He can't really die if he's that intact. Like he can keep trying to resurrect himself. He's at the bottom of the sea, encased in gold, mouth stuck in this like unending scream. That's like some existential horror right there. Like he is still aware, as far as we the audience are concerned, he can still be alive and trying to resurrect it, constantly resurrecting himself, constantly dying and resurrecting because he refuses to give up. But he's trapped probably a couple hundred feet on the seafloor, encased in metal. Like that's some horrific shit. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. If anybody in that movie deserved it, it was that guy. Like he got a lot of people killed, a lot of messed up stuff. But dude, that's if you're gonna kill a bad guy, like you have like the narrative, like karma get him. There you go. Because all of his ambition, all of his greed, all of his will. I mean, his willpower is pretty amazing. He was just evil. Like that came to a head with him, or climax with him stuck in this state where he's not going to stop trying, but he can't get out of it. And that's like horrific shit right there.
That's horrifying to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
He deserved it.
well, yeah, I mean that's true, but like there's one thing that they didn't explain, which was how do you even have the power to do that, to come back?
Yeah, that was like sorcery. The other guys were almost.
They're human, but they're on the verge of being either inhuman or superhuman.
Yeah, and I mean, some are kind of weird. I think the lady with the explosives didn't ever do anything superhuman. She was just really good with explosives and a little bit out there. Like she was like a Batman villain as opposed to like a Superman villain. You know, just maybe she's a little abnormal. Like she's a little bit out of the ordinary, but nothing she did was inherently implausible for a human to do. Like the guy with the hornet's nest on his back.
Oh god, that
like,
was horrifying to see.
Body horror for days, dude. That's some freaky stuff. The blind guy, the blind swordsman.
He didn't really have any superpowers
Yeah.
either. He was just really heightened abilities.
Yeah, he was just badass. Like, you know, he uses his hearing and they use it against him in the end. But like, he wasn't inhuman. But Tasai, the dude who turned himself into stone.
Yeah, he had some powers. He had something
Yeah.
going on there. And
what's his bucket? He generate electricity from his body. Gemma's right hand dude.
Gemma's
love interest.
yeah,
Like.
three-way in the bed.
Yeah. Well, the fact that they actually played that up, that Gemma was unfaithful to him, and then that put him at odds with the Snake Lady. Again, the cast-off skin Snake Lady. That was
Oh
some
god,
superpower stuff.
I still remember the scene where
Yeah.
Snake just came out of her and it was
Yeah.
just like, oh
It
no.
bit that lady. It's like oof.
Oh.
And then
How does that even work?
Yeah, and then what's his bucket? The guy they cut his leg off and he gets away the first time. He disappeared in the shadows.
The Shadow Ninja?
Yeah. I mean, there's some powers there, but resurrecting yourself from the dead and reattaching your own head, that's like next level. That really, truly is next level.
It is.
But, I don't know. I think there's a TV show.
Oh yeah, there is a TV show. They made a TV
Yeah.
show, I think, a few years later, because the animation ain't the same.
Uh,
It's still pretty good animation. It's just like not as detailed as the movies were.
yeah.
About like I think about like 36, maybe 12 episodes, talking about him and saving this one girl who was a princess who apparently was like this weird ancient alien princess thing. I don't remember.
Okay.
Like-
Well, those things they should have left it as is. I mean, because the story was very well contained. There was enough to tease the imagination. Like, what happens to him? What's this? The guy actually says, like, the ninja scroll is just as I have written, like, well, their adventures we go on. But leave it to the audience's imagination. Don't crap on what you did. Take the same crew and maybe even the same general, like, movie universe, whatever to say. Well, there's this level of potential for people that are unnatural. There's ninjas, there's samurai, and do a whole separate story within that context. Cool. Take the same crew and just do a whole different show, you know, like, hey, let's try, you know, a different genre, let's try a different context, but keep the same animation style, the same production company, the same writers.
Hey, you know what we should emphasize more about the pre-story of how Wajube and Yellow were even at odds.
That would be a good one. That would have been a really good one. Doing a prequel about that would have been awesome. Side note, again, tangent. So, kind of switching in the 2000s, did you ever see Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust?
Oh my god, that was my jam. I loved that one and I loved the original. I don't care
Yeah.
how many people say the first one was bad. I loved it. I
it
still
came out
watch
in
it.
like 84.
Yeah.
They played it on TBS. Well, I mean, in the context of when it came out, it's like watching The 1982 Thing is an amazing film. The special effects don't hold up that well. They're still not bad, but they don't hold up that well because that was almost 40 years ago and prior to the CGI special effects revolution. It's still a good movie. So like dogging on the original Vampire Hunter D because like it was, you know, the animation was like early 80s, not very detailed. There's some hokiness here and there. If you remember, well, you don't remember this, but I remember what Americans were doing in the 1980s. I remember the haircuts. I remember an awful lot of things.
The mustaches,
Oh God.
the
Bowl
coats,
cuts.
the suits.
Yeah, the suits with the shoulder pads.
Yep.
The short shorts, the one tiny slip up, and the whole world knows what you bring to the party. But that whole bit, I mean, in the context.
Mountains of coke.
Oh God! Oh my God! In hindsight, realizing everybody I saw on TV was probably coked out of their mind at that time, like how out of control that was. So I mean, dogging on Vampire Hunter D, the original, for like nitpicking stuff, like look how goofy the animation was, or that's kind of a silly thing for a guy to wear. I'm like, bro. Bro, He-Man. Everybody in there was in their underpants. All of them. Like, oh, have a bandolier, but make sure you can see your nipples, guy. Like, everybody was in their underwear. Like,
Lionel was in a leotard.
oh god, yeah.
If
He was in a onesie.
He
like-
was in a onesie.
Oh Jesus! But no, I mean those Silverhawks. I mean, like all the stuff we took for granted. Like those guys are running around, talking with their flesh exposed in deep space, no problem whatsoever. We accepted that, but we're gonna draw the line at Vampire Hunter D. It's like let's freak out that this guy was flying, didn't actually have wings, or whatever was going on with that. Like I haven't seen it in a long time, but
You mean like how he jumped in the air and like we all thought he was flying, but no, he just jumped really super high.
yeah. But that being said, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was amazing. Amazing, at least the English dub, the voice actors.
Oh god, it was so good.
What was that place they go to through full of the monsters and whatnot? And,
I know it because I just seen it recently.
The guy on the unicycle just comes up there. He's like,
the Bobador, Damn, I can't remember. I know what it is.
The Barbaroy.
There we go. Yes.
You want a beverage?
Yes, please, my good man. Thank you. Yes, the Barbaroy. When he went to the Barbaroy, and all you just hear was them just talking slightly while at any minute that all these guys could jump on him, and you think, well, will he make it? Probably, because he's killed about like thousands of monsters before.
Yeah. They, one thing I like about it too is when Meyer Link takes out that village and turns them all, but they're like, I want to say proto-vampires or not as...
I want to say they were ghouls.
Yeah.
But they still looked like they were just
They were
undead
like
vampires.
They were like normal people or still sentient at first. When they grab that guy and he's got bite marks and he's drinking, and the dude looks at him and he starts to turn and he puts 3 arrows in him and dumps him in the well. Like he was still aware, so I'm wondering if it's like he just bit them and they were gonna go in this kind of like larval stage or early vampirism. They're kind of monstrous and freaky half the time. But what really tripped me out was when they run over a bunch from that tank. And I've seen this in other art forms too. Actually, oddly enough, the new wave of like Korean zombie movies does this, where like the one of the vampires is in the foreground, the tank knocks them all over, and it's driving away in the distance. It's getting chased by a bunch of vampires who are hopping after it. One dude's on his back, and when he sits up, his head doesn't lead the way. His chest goes first. So it has this implication that something else is puppeting his flesh. It's not him conscious. When you sit up, you know, most of us, you move your head up and then your body follows. That thing where like the chest moves first and the head kind of whips into position afterwards always struck me as out there. It's cool and effective in implying that these things are like, they're driven by some base instinct to kill beyond their intellect. Their intellect is not running the show. It's like they're along for the ride. So I see like possession movies where like someone sits up but their body moves first and the head follows.
In theory, they could have just been like they were humans up until nighttime hit,
Yeah.
and they could just switch back. And to them, that could just be a bad, terrible nightmare.
Yeah.
But in reality, they were
Speaking
just
of
killing
which,
people.
some of the Warhammer 40k novelizations, there's one, it's focuses on the Morian Guard. So it's like, there's an Inquisitor, I think, and then Imperial Guard Regiment. There's a thing like that where during the day, people are listless, like they haven't slept. It's a relatively newly established colony, but the Dark Eldar, or now the Drukhari, as they rebranded them so they copyright it, they were testing this thing as like a shock weapon or psychological weapon or destabilizing agent, where when it's on during the day, baseline humans are kind of listless and derpy, and then at night they swell and stretch and change and become kind of ghoulish, and they're like really freaking hard to kill, and they're really motivated to rip people into pieces. But during the day, they're just kind of like the first guy they find in the book that's normal. They find he's an engineer or something, and he's just in his control room. Has no idea what's going on. He kind of confesses to having like some kind of weird dream. He's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. They turn around, he's like dozing off in a chair. Like he's just super derpy, right? And he's like an administrative level engineer, overseer guy of this colony. Like he's, you know, like a technician trained to oversee other people high up.
The head technician guy.
Yeah, so he's up there, but like you just sit there like kind of derping around, and then when night falls, like suddenly these zombie things come pouring out everywhere. There's like ghoulish zombie people, and this dude's like goes after the Imperial Guard, and they put laser rounds in him, but It's kind of getting to that. Like during the day, there's like they're there, but no one's really home. And then at night, all hell breaks loose. So I have no recollection of what they did.
More harder to kill those damn alien monsters in Dead Space.
Oh Jesus!
The only way to kill them was to delimb them, and that was it.
But dude, was it the third one? Like the end of the second game, I really enjoyed like that last boss fight, and then your first boss encounter on the third game, like you end up like freaking fighting two of those things. These things that they cannot die, they keep regenerating. You're fighting two of those while you're waiting for this like subway tram car thing to come pick you up. I got so frustrated with that. I'm like, you know what? I know the second game. The kids can play this one. I'm done. I have other things I can do. I could be reading a book or organizing my sock drawer or something.
Yeah, I found a way to actually not less beat them, but more or less to slow them down, and just to use your time connected power to like freeze them, temporarily freeze them for a time.
Jumped that in ages. That was on I think 360. We had that.
Yeah, 360, and it was on PS3.
Many moons.
Yeah.
I say that I'm going back like and replaying all the Borderlands games on PC.
I like 2. Borderlands 2 because it had 0 in it. That's it. That was it for
I
me.
enjoyed the pre-sequel too. There was a lot of goofy writing in the pre-sequel, but there's some clunky parts too. But anyways, gory anime. So oddly enough, I've been rewatching Cowboy Bebop. This is
Okay.
2000s. There is a lot of death. There's not that much blood. Like, granted, sometimes like people are exposed to hard vacuum and die, or there's an explosion, their ship gets blown up. There's a lot of people that get like shot, or like they open up on the grenade launcher. Like, there should be more gore, but they dialed it back, and I'm curious as to why.
I'm assuming it's probably because it's not meant to be all gore and action. It's kind of like meant to be just more like who you are in this time.
A film noir thing too.
Yeah.
Film noir thing going on.
Like Spike, he's just trying to get away from his past. Faye's trying to remember her past, and Jet is just in the present. And Ed is just dead.
His past haunts him, and then Ed's just Ed is dead.
That is
There's
dead.
even past was the dog had like, if I recall correctly, like some kind of like trove of corporate data was encoded in the dog somehow, or something ridiculous. And the dog itself had a past, but it's like, nope, we're just gonna ignore that and forge on with the show.
Wait, doesn't the dog have like a whole bunch of stuff for a company? Nope, not anymore.
Yep. It's like, yeah, we did, but then we introduced a character that had boobs, and everyone wanted to watch her story. So here we go.
You ever hear about what they're gonna do to Faye in the live action TV show?
I don't know. I mean, okay, so you're not my high horse here.
Yeah.
And we can judge Marcy for this. I get annoyed. So they're insistent on like, oh, it's so great that they cast an Asian American actor to play Spike Spiegel. I'm like, well, the cast in the show seemed very diverse. Like they spent a lot of time in like New Tijuana, and it's all Latinos there. Like Spike Spiegel, he's got a German last name. He looks Latino. They get the guy from Harold and Kumar. If you're insistent on being an Asian American male, that's fine, okay, but don't cast the dude from Harold and Kumar. He hurt himself in filming, derailed the whole production. I like him. He was great in Star Trek. He was great in Harold and Kumar, but he didn't have the martial arts background for Spike Spiegel. And lo and behold, he gets injured in filming. I'm willing to bet, like, spin kick, twisted ankle, dislocated knee, 6 months of rehab, probably never the same again.
Or they might just do like how they did in the Iron Fist, where constant changing the cameras.
Yeah, don't get me started on Iron Fist. I'll be here all day. But they could have gone, because it was Andy on. Honestly, they should have gotten Phil Dane. Like, that dude, like, he played Bruce Lee in that adaptation where he fights Wonder Man. So he's Chinese American. He grew up in the States. Skilled actor, amazing martial arts, trainer under Wong Chun Pung. So his Wing Chun is top notch. His dad is a Chilean foot instructor in Chicago. He's also cross-trained in Hong Kong and a bunch of other arts. He is like an amazing martial artist. He's amazingly skilled. He's still in peak condition. He can act, and he looks more the part. I mean, if not to give him a different haircut, like toss his hair, but he looks more the part and has a swagger of Spike Spiegel. So they're insistent on that, cool in the gang, but then they take Jet, who to me looks maybe Italian. They make him African. So you call a man named Jet, and you have a black guy play it. That sounds borderline racist. You know, like Jet is Jet Black. It's like that seemed a little bit weird choice. Like maybe not the best pairing there.
Yeah, I was kind of skeptical about that, but I was like, you know what? I know these other actors.
Yeah.
They might do a good job. Chemistry might work.
Yeah.
Let's see how this plays out.
But they were so, everyone, again, I'm left leaning. Most of my friends are very hard left. That they were like, great, they cast an Asian person to be an anime that's set in a distant future in space where every culture is mixed up suddenly. They're so intent on that, but no one pointed out the fact that they didn't make Jet Asian American actor guy. I think the guy in question is actually an African immigrant. Okay, you're Jet, who cares? As long as the main guy has to be, in spite of the fact that he looks Latino in the anime, and the fact that he has a generic American first name and a German last name.
And his hair doesn't even, shout Japanese. It sounds like, oh, I don't even know. Like he has an afro.
Yeah.
How does this work, guys?
He's got the white guy afro going
He's
on.
got the white guy.
Biological father had the white guy afro. Even when he got out of the army, he kept the crew cut until he died because he had the white guy afro. I saw some pictures when he was in high school because of that control that my stepmom unearthed after he passed. Like, oh dear God, this explains everything.
Why he kept the kid so long.
on.
But it's weird, like how you describe him as that, and what I actually saw in the bio for description, because I was kind of going back to look up more, space, probably rebound stuff. And it says he's Japanese.
Yeah.
And it's like weird. It's super weird.
Yeah. He doesn't look like it.
So if he's Japanese, what the hell is Vincent then?
I don't know.
Now Faye is straight out Japanese. We can see this.
Yeah. But see, knowing the way they're going with this, they might just turn around and just make her like cosplay girl. It's like, you see a white cosplay girl play her. And everyone have a meltdown. That being said, like, circle back to Ghost in the Shell, which again, amazing anime.
Live action.
Yeah, but making it Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
I am excited to watch her in the Black Widow movie. I am. I think she does not get enough credit as an action star. That being said, they should not have cast her as a major. If they wanted to make it a white lady for whatever reason, again, she should have been a Japanese actress, just hands down. But they're insistent on making a white lady. I think Kate Beckinsale would have been a better option. But that's just me. But that definitely should not have been ScarJo playing the major. Like, I think it's why there's two guys in the whole show that were actually Japanese and spoke Japanese. One of them was Ita Takeshi, who played like the boss chief. I think that was actually a decent call. Ita Takeshi, remember Most Extreme Elimination Challenge? That show he's put on I think Spike TV or FX or something.
Okay.
Yeah. The original show was called Takeshi's Castle. And Takeshi was, if I recall correctly, was a comedian who then had like a stroke, so his face was like dead. He could, do comedies, and he looked so sinister. So he was actually the guy in there. You fast forward to later, he did a really good Zatoichi adaptation, but he made his name playing Yakuza figures. He's like hardcore, gory Japanese gangster movies, like out of control, like super intense, ultra violent, and he's this menacing figure because like he just has this like dead face all the time because he had like a neurological issue, which that's as I understand it. I never completely look that up, but maybe I should. But we were like seeing reading about that, and then like chat logs, people talking about how he changed his career path. But I think it was a casting job. But I mean, overall though, like again, making the major ScarJo, I think that was a major faux pas.
But going back to Cowboy People, when I said that what they were going to do with Faye is that people are being snowflakes. They want Faye to dress in something. They want a woman. How should I say? A woman underneath them clothing.
Yeah.
Even though that was not the character of Faye at all, Faye basically used her sexuality to get bounties,
Yeah.
essentially.
And again, it was just a coping mechanism. It is what it is. It wasn't making her a two-dimensional character. I mean, she had a lot of depth to her. She had a gambling problem. She had an interesting backstory. She had some trust issues. But again, she found her way. Again, she's also a badass. She was an excellent pilot. She's an excellent marksman. She disarmed people, did joint locks. There were like scenes where she beat like multiple opponents up. But she would use her physicality to disarm and distract. It was an effective strategy, a defense mentality. And there's, that's all she was. That's lame, but there's more to the character than that. But that gave her an edge in the bounty hunting world. So I don't see a problem with that. I mean, they go over the top where it's like borderline Rule 34, the whole damn series.
That's understandable.
Yeah, look, an unnecessary scene of her in the shower again. I can see that. Like, they did that with Star Trek Enterprise, the Vulcan lady on that show. That and their comms officer, the lady who was the galaxy's greatest linguist. They really, really, really overplayed their sexuality. Like, they were like, hey, let's have an unnecessary scene where they're in their underwear, slathering themselves up with decontamination gel. Like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are we doing this right now?
Hey, profits.
Yeah, but then they realized that they weren't actually getting any traction with male viewers, so like, nerd girls watch this show. Let's have Scott Bakula with no shirt on again. And Scott Bakula rarely hits the gym. And it's like, oh look, Scott Bakula's hairy chest. And they went that route. So like, and again, I wasn't a fan of that series. But I lasted 4 episodes. The best part of that was when they had they jumped ahead in a way. Like, it was their alternate history, like the timeline of the evil Terran Empire, but they also got their hands on a original series tech level Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there was a lot of work going on there, but it was like a lot of backstabbing, and then the evil counterpart, the comms officer, declares herself emperor. Like, okay, that one I was on board with, because she poisons evil Scott Bakula. I'm like, all right, then this is interesting, because like they suddenly show up with a ship that's like 100 years more advanced. It's huge, and it came from like the main Star Trek timeline. It's an Enterprise class, or same class Enterprise, where they called the Enterprise class at the time. And they just whoop up on their own fleet, and then like Scott Bakula's like, I'm the Emperor, and she's like, poison, I'm the Emperor. Like, boom, cut the credits. I'm like, all right, I'm on board. But by and large, that Star Trek iteration, I think, was kind of blah. It didn't help that it had the absolute freaking worst intro music ever for a sci-fi show. Like, it was from Bryan Adams or something. It's like, it's been a long time. This is terrible. I can't sing. I can't even sing well enough to mock it properly, I'll be honest. But, oh my god. Like, it was just freaking awful. Usually the intro sequence would come on, and I was like, no. The person I was seeing at the time loved this. Was a Trekkie and loved it. It was the only Star Trek show on there. And I'm like, we have to sit there and watch it and pretend to be excited. So I was like, emotionally draining. And again, they're really unnecessary, like, hey, let's have them get out of the shuttlecraft and then sit there and slather each other up and they're backlit and like some unnecessary like nipples poking through shirts. Like, man, come on. Give us some character development. Let's have some space battles. This is like pre-phasers. So the first time they go to a planet's surface, they're using like 45s and shooting. So I'm like, hey, cool. But no, it's like every episode had 2 or 3 scenes where somebody was in the the decon room or decon chamber, and they're like slathering themselves up in their underpants. I'm like, okay, I get it. All right, we've done this before.
All right. See it. Stop.
Yeah, it's like this will end up somewhere on the internet in fan art anyway. Let's just go for it. But,
Well, we can't talk about gore anime in the 80s and 90s without one of the main ones, which is Battle Angel Alita, or Alita Battle Angel.
I need to go back to that. I hear the live action was amazing. I was a little skeptical when they really overdid like the big eye thing, and they did like mocap for it. But I have a friend who's a huge, like going back to the original manga in like the late '80s. Huge fan of that. Was super excited when James Cameron originally bought the rights for an adaptation in the 1990s. She watched it and she gave me the thumbs up. Actually, it's on my roommate's Xbox.
I definitely recommend it. Me and my cousin watched it. It was great. The anime, because it was based on a manga based on an anime. It was like the age difference that you watch from the movie and then from the anime is like it feels a little off because in the anime or the live action she looks like she's in her teens. In the anime she looks like she's like 13.
Yeah, you're a kid.
Like a kid.
Yeah.
This dangerous kid though that
Yeah.
can kick your
Well,
ass.
it is. It's an artificial construct. But I think probably the thing is they want someone to, because there's a love interest aspect, they need to make her older so it wasn't too creepy.
Mhm.
But let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff in anime, like even the mainstream stuff, there's some creepy stuff that's, by our standards, is not okay. It's like, okay, you're a grown ass man, that's not a grown ass at all. You need to not do that.
What's actually very funny about that is that there is a few people in Japan that are like 23, 25, but they look in like they're like 13, 14s. And it's just, and I think it's the disease that they actually get from when they're born or
So I
something.
think part too is just we age like Westerners, even people of Asian descent in the West, since our diet's different, we tend to mature more quickly because we're eating a very high protein diet. There's hormones in our freaking dairy products. People age fast. This is actually what I heard from a college student from Hong Kong when I was in college in the States for bachelor's. It was like they have kind of like this like low key saying was that Westerners become beautiful more quickly, but those looks fade very quickly. It's like a sprint versus a long haul. And it's because we live like crap. We take in way more calories, so actually people are taller. No matter what ethnic background you are, if you grew up in the United States, you tend to be taller because there is tons of protein in everything. There's hormones in our milk. There's tons of sugar and all these things that you're, at a certain stage of development will help you get big and healthy and tall and whatever else. And then in your 20s, it'll bite you in the butt. And that's what we have issues with diabetes and obesity, hypertension, cancer.
You can find all this down in Texas.
Yeah. Every corner's got 3 barbecue joints.
Every corner's
Yep.
got party.
And like the 4th corner's a Starbucks. Which is where my parents live. But
That fifth one right there. It's like a half IV, half barbecue.
yeah, basically, it's a grocery store that has its own barbecue joint attached to it. They're smoking meat as you walk in. Yeah, these like they look younger than we would expect them to look because they don't age as fast. I think that's why they've got the highest percentage of senior citizens in Japan because their life expectancy is like almost 90 now.
Yeah.
They are healthy and active well until into their golden years because they don't sit as much. They don't have lazy boy recliners in everyone's living room. They walk more often.
They
exercise.
They actually cook all their meals.
Yeah.
Even in they're like fast food restaurants, all their meals in fast food are cooked by hand.
Yeah, on the spot, you see what you're getting into. But they're not living off processed meals and processed sugar, and a lot of stuff that we put in our food is illegal to put in there. Same with Europe, honestly, too. But a lot of stuff they put in their food, or that we put in our food, has been banned in Europe for decades. That being said, Europeans drink way more than we do, and they smoke more than we do, and that'll get you. Like that'll have that you get something. It's going to get you somehow. But the Japanese live much cleaner lifestyle. Granted, they have a high stress social structure. Like they're under a lot of stress, which does cause problems for your health.
Like what kind of stress? Are we talking about like what everybody expects you to do?
Stress to perform.
Oh.
Social pressures. Where imagine the social pressure from junior high for us, like trying to be the cool kid, which would encourage us to be an asshole because we think assholes are cool because America. Like,
America.
yeah, oh god, like growing up watching 80s and 90s movies, like you had to like make a big splash and be a dickhead to get attention. But that level of stress from trying to fit in or trying to like find your spot in the hierarchy. Imagine that like when you become an adult, like, you know what, man, I don't have to impress anybody. Like I have my peers and people whose opinion I value, but I don't need to worry about wearing the latest fashion or doing this or doing that or like what does this person think of me? I don't know and I don't care because I'll never see them again. It doesn't matter if the person at McDonald's thinks I'm cool when I walk in. But in Japan, like there's social pressure to perform. There's social, and even with the idea of like failure, like there is an issue with romantic entanglements, and that's the word of the day. But there's a hesitancy, and I'm sure part of it's, of course, fear of getting hurt, you know, like we all can be hurt, but the idea that you will lose face or be embarrassed if you date somebody and it ends up not working out. Like it ends up not being the person for you, you guys don't end up getting married and spending your whole years together. That you end up like, oh, it didn't work out, she broke up with me, I broke up with her, whatever. That there is a degree of shame and the not my asthma. Totally wrong word. Totally wrong word. I'll circle back to my question, but the notion of failure, like there's like this like shadow over you that you failed because your relationship didn't work out. Because failure is like horrible, you know, but it's this pressure to succeed and do the correct thing. So you have a lot of people in Japan that end up like single for most of their life as a young adult. And I mean young adult in the real sense, not young adult as in the 13-year-olds who buy freaking Twilight novels. But like the young adults in like, you know, age like 18 to 40, that age range, like you're in your prime or your youth, like that range, they spend a lot of time single because like that pressure, like if you date somebody who doesn't work out, you're horribly embarrassed. So
Is that why like the rate of virgins in Japan is so high? Because if I remember correctly, I remember seeing an article reading about it. It's like the percent of how many virgins in Japan is about like 10%.
Whereas the States, you're pressured to have sex earlier and earlier because we use sex to sell everything.
Yeah, that's actually.
Even companies that are run by supposedly religious, pious people will use sex to sell products. Like, I don't know, man. Like Amway even uses sex to sell, and they're run by like Christian extremists. Even churches, they use beautiful people to attract new converts to their church. Like they have like the dashingly handsome youth pastor guy who clearly has a gym membership, maybe even juices, wearing like $100 designer jeans, like, and he's tan and whatever else to get girls to join their church. Like they do that shit. It's just, America uses sex to sell everything. We use sex to sell politics. We use, you know, and we encourage people. And this whole thing is like, if you have not done the deed, you are less of a person. Whereas I think other countries, again, we look at them as like, wow, there's so many virgins there. Well, you know, maybe because they're not pressured into doing the deed. Whereas here, like, I'm willing to bet you actually took surveys of people, our numbers are skewed further by the fact that even if it's an anonymous survey, we would lie. Like, if somebody who was like 25 and hadn't like handed their V card,
Yeah.
anonymous survey, complete 100% anonymous, nobody knows, there's still a good chance they're gonna lie and say yes, they've done the deed. Because again, we're indoctrinated with this like and again this weird dichotomy, like they call it the like hawk and dove thing.
Like
not
more
the
hawk
comic.
and peace dove, or
No, like well you get into this with there's oddly enough conflict resolution within societies. There is this series, I want to say it was Montenegrin blood feuds, where guys are supposed to be hawks, like they're out there getting chick before they're married even, like, yeah, I banged X number of chicks. This is going back to like the time when the Ottoman Empire controlled Southeast Europe. Like the Ottomans are trying to crack down on it because they're getting out of control. And this whole thing where girls are supposed to be pure and not do the deed until they're married, but guys are supposed to be like, I'm not even married yet, and I've had like sex with 50 bajillion girls, like this whole thing. So guys were always after women. Women were supposed to be aloof and pious and pure and blah blah blah, which is unfair and sexist and disgusting. But there's this whole social pressure for that, and then saying things like, "Oh, your son got down with my daughter. He has got to marry her now." This would lead to a blood feud, and their blood feuds were like this eye for an eye, tit for tat thing that could go on and on and on. And certain situations like they have these big attack dogs back then. Like the attack dog can count as a kill as part of the blood feud. And you're using muskets, right? It's far enough along in technology where they're using guns. But this whole thing where like they would lay siege to each other's property. If someone's attack dog kills you on on their property, that's not a blood feud, you're on their property. If the attack dog gets loose and attacks you off the property, then that counts as like a blood feud. Like, they had this huge calculation for this very elaborate situation, but you weren't supposed to kill women or children. So the situations where these guys, like this dude would show up with like, to go settle a blood debt between clans. He's got like his brother and his cousin Steve, and they're there with muskets. They couldn't shoot women or engage in combat with them in any way. So the woman would walk out there with a lantern at night, stand over them, so the guys, the men folk hiding in the house would have a clear shot. But the dude sitting there with the muskets out in the woods have to sit there and ignore the fact that someone's standing with a lantern over them to show where they're at because she was a non-combatant.
That's
Weird
pretty
stuff.
funny.
And that was a hell of a freaking tangent there. But yeah, I don't know, man. It gets into weird turf. Again, our perception of what's normal. You go back in the United States 100 years, and we could go to jail for wearing a swimsuit we consider normal nowadays. 100 years ago would be a prison sentence for like indecent exposure and indecent conduct.
Like showing your shoulders or your ankles.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and yet we're down, and we got our own people nowadays, like people that are ultra religious that wear like the ankle length denim skirts, or they dress like they're in Little House on the Prairie, like those Christian fundamentalists in about the Arizona-New Mexico border, like Warren Jeffs and his crew. Like they look like they're cosplaying Little House on the Prairie all the time. They're super creepy. And those guys do weird shit, like they pick a male heir and they keep their female children, but any superfluous male offspring, they take them into Las Vegas and they dump them off. And those kids are lucky; they survive long enough to like go to an army recruitment station as an adult and enlist and get an education that way. But a lot of them end up addicted to drugs and homeless in Las Vegas because these like fundamentalist, ultra conservative nutball Mormons and like. I was in that town. It's on like the Arizona, New Mexico border, and like the whole town was run by these fundamentalist Mormons. And one guy left the church, and he went back to being just a normal Mormon. He's like, "This is ridiculous," and he just became a Mormon, which is conservative by mainstream American standards. He became a normal Mormon, or a mainstream Mormon, or joined the mainstream church in Utah. They sabotage his fences so his cattle and his horses would get out. They cut his brake lines. He went to they cut his electricity because the guys who ran the power company were part of the fundamentalist church. He go to the cops about it. The cops were all in the fundamentalist church. Nobody did anything about that. They kept like he would get in his car and he had to double check his brakes. They kept cutting his brake lines trying to assassinate him because he left the church. Again, the women like they'd have like 8 or 9 wives, and they're all like these girls. Again, men in their 50s married to 14-year-old girls that are dressed like they're on Little House on the Prairie as a stage extra. So, again, there's the weird
weird stuff about America.
Yeah. That's way off the topic of gore and 90s anime.
90s anime.
But caffeine's a hell of a drug.
No. So continue on with the 90s anime. I think I got one last one. I'm not sure. Have you ever heard of the anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventures?
I keep hearing about that, and I've been instructed to watch it by like 5 different people. One of which, Christian, reminds me to watch that about once a week. He's like, "We watch it yet?" I'm like, "I haven't got around to it yet." And he's on my case. Like that one and Goblin Slayer, I keep hearing you to watch those.
Goblin Slayer is more or less akin to D&D because here's the thing. In D&D, this is just for my viewers and for everybody that listens and wants to start D&D. When they first start, they get a healer. It's a warrior, a monk, a magician, and a healer. That's the basic construct of almost all classes. They go into a dungeon, and here's the one thing you never want to do. You never want to separate the group.
Yeah. No, it's like a classic horror movie, 101. It's like, don't split up.
Never split
Like,
up.
hey, let's split up. We'll cover more ground. You'll die one at a time that way.
it got progressively worse within Goblin Slayer because the magician girl died. They stabbed her in the gut with poison. The fighter, he was fighting in a small corridor, so his long sword hit the top of the roof out of his hand, and they all jumped on him and killed him.
Jesus.
The monk girl was doing actually pretty good until she fought Hobgoblin, which was like a big, giant, fat goblin that threw her against the wall. And
Don't body shame him.
don't body shame. To which the rest of the goblins proceed to, and I'm not joking about this. Yep,
Oh god.
yep. It begins with rape. It begins and shall end with rape.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, there's a little too much of that in there. I understand, like, it's. They have the trigger warning things a little bit overused, but, like, dude, that's like. It's like, hey, you know that most horrible things that ever happened to you in your entire life? We're gonna repeat it in pop culture over and over and over and over
again.
Like, no one's been killed by. At least no one who's, like, watching an anime currently was killed by a sword, because they would be dead, of course. So no one's like, oh, that reminds me of this traumatic event in my life when I was run through with a sword by a goblin. No one, so I mean, you know, death is horrible, but no one who has been murdered is going to watch a show about getting murdered is going to remind them of being murdered because they're already dead. But sexual assault happens to more people than we were willing to accept. Like, you know, we probably all deep down knew it was very common, but we kind of turned a blind eye to it until we're no longer able to. And I know that's fucked up. But we were unwilling to face the fact that that's very common, and so it needs to be addressed in society. But then we were like, yeah, let's get pop culture from overseas, and like every female character gets fucking sexually assaulted. That's fucking horrible. Berserker, everybody's sexually assaulted.
Oh, everybody. Even
Everybody.
Guts was.
Everybody does. And like, Jesus Christ. What happened to normal people? Like, oh, we captured him, what'd you do to him? We beat the shit out of him, I broke all his fingers. Good for you. You know, like, that's not gonna ruin a major aspect of human interaction for you to put a shadow over the rest of your life. Like, but it's like, you know, hey, we need this guy to be a bad guy. Well, how? Let's have him rape some people. Okay then. Like, it's fucked up. Granted, even I said, you know, back when we said earlier about Ninja Scroll, like they portray rape in that, and it's portrayed as being a horrible thing done by monstrous people. But it's getting more and more and more common when you'd imagine we would have backed off from that by now. You know, the Me Too movement, hearing about, you know, male celebrities being sexually assaulted by executives, like, you think we would have learned, like, maybe we could back off of this shit.
Maybe
Acknowledge
we'll
it
just
happens.
tone it down a
Yeah,
bit.
maybe these people can go through their life without seeing reminders what happened to them every other fucking day. Like, let's have a bad guy. What does he do? Well, he kills people. Well, how? Cleanly and efficiently, because he's an efficient murderer. Like, oh look, the guy's dead. What happened to him? Well, such and such killed him, and killed everybody else in the village systematically, efficiently. That's his MO. Not like I
Nobody
sexually
saw
assaulted
nothing.
everybody.
He didn't leave no footprints.
Yeah.
Leave no hand marks. No nothing.
Yeah.
He's just here, killed, gone.
So spooky. Like, how do you do that? Not like, yeah, he showed up and then he spent the next 3 hours sexually assaulting everybody in the village, which we had to watch. Where they show everything, graphic detail, the whole enchilada, because lazy writing. Like, that's, you know, it's getting out of hand. It's and on the flip side too, though, how they have these like characters where it's like inexplicably, like, girl with completely ridiculous proportions shows up and wants to bang the main character. It's dehumanizing. It's lazy writing. It's,
And you kind of see it all the time, and it's like, come on, people, we get it. It's happened. Can we please do something a bit different?
Yeah. It's like introduce male character. Introduce, oftentimes, underage female character with boobs that make no goddamn sense for her body type. She really would just topple over, you know, the slightest shift in balance over she would go. Let's throw her in there, and she's gonna constantly just throw herself at this guy.
And then let's just throw 5 more in there while we're at
Yeah,
it.
so it's
Maybe
a
just
harem.
lowly
Yay.
while we're doing
Ugh,
it.
yeah, ugh. Just disgusting.
I'm gonna be honest, it does get pretty much annoying when you're seeing this constantly over and over in anime.
Well, the fact there's a harem genre, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
But like, how come the harems are always like getting new ones every year? But it's like, oh, action adventure gets one, but it's action adventure and it's also harem,
Yeah.
or it's action adventure and it's also murder. Or it's something like that. Like, just no
there's
straight
a lot
up
of
action.
unnecessary rapey stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, like you get like, granted, I'm behind on Attack on Titan, way behind. But like, as far as I know, no one's been sexually assaulted in there, and the main character does not have a harem of women who just throw themselves at him for no good reason.
No, you just have the one that wants him. The one that you can tell wants him, but does not has to say anything before. Yeah.
But see, that gets into the idea like that, you know, people that social pressure, that they can't feel they can express their attraction to somebody, the fear of ruining friendship or whatever. That's actually like good writing and gets into these weird dynamics that people find themselves in the real world. Most people don't find themselves in a situation where it's like one geeky guy and like 6 women of varying ethnicities, ages, and body types all throwing themselves at him. Oh, you know, oh senpai, my top fell off again. Whatever shall I do? It's like, bro, save that for like your fanfic shit. I want explosions, demons, monsters, ass kicking, character development, maybe some mystery, the occult, robots, or something. Not
Please,
that.
something.
Or the whole like 13-year-old boy is the primary character and he can't inexplicably lead his army of giant battle robots to war because like I don't know if Tito likes me or not. It's like save the junior high fucking drama. When I was 13, you put me in charge of a phalanx of elite mech pilots. I would be like, well, I don't know if that Sarah girl in 4th period likes me or not. It's like, you know, no. Hey, Jake, there's gonna be a bunch of bad guys showing up. Like, wait, where? When? Alright, do I pass out of class? Fantastic, okay. Mech pilot guys, let's do this shit. I be blowing stuff up, not like, well, I can't pilot my mech, so I don't know if she likes me or not. I think she likes Steve from gym class, and I'm all heartbroken. I mean, that shit.
And Steve is like this emo guy with like dark hair, doesn't speak at all, but he
Yeah.
looks super cool to all the girls.
It's like, you know what? That's fine. May they be happy. May they have a relationship based on mutual respect and trust. May they live a long life together. I'll be busy blowing shit up with an army of giant robot pilots kicking ass and taking names. I'm pretty sure I'll be content with that. Or like Evangelion.
Oh no.
Oh, I hate my dad because he forged me to be this pilot to save the world and this giant Godzilla-sized robot, whatever. Fuck off, man. Fuck off. Like, seriously. Again, 13-year-old me. Oh, my absentee father, like, oh, I'm sorry I wasn't part of your life. I was busy designing this giant battle robot, which only you can pilot to save the day. I'm like, you know what? All is forgiven. You guys, my 10th birthday, you know, you were busy. I understand. No harm, no foul. So, where are the keys? And do I get a cool flight suit? Or do I just wear my street clothes? How does this work? But no, it's like, oh, I'm so emo about this. Oh, I have these 2 like smoking hot women who follow me around inexplicably too. I'm emo.
But I
about
treat him
that
like
too.
shit.
Yeah. Getting into the harem stuff. It's like, man, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? But humans got a human.
Yeah, that's very much true.
I wonder if someone that people actually write a lot of these old manga and anime if like they've ever themselves talked to a counselor. There's some like deep-seated bullshit there.
I mean, Evangelion, if you actually look at it, there's a lot of a literal giant form of talking about how Evangelion is like an entire like anime just based off of religion
And daddy issues.
and daddy issues. But again, going back to JoJo, the creator of JoJo actually made one prior to JoJo, which was called Bao. When I watched the anime, holy hell, there's so much gore in that.
This one now.
Bao, B-O-A-H. Or I think it was B-A-O-H. And the things that this character can do, he, in like the first 5 minutes, he breaks the guy's arm in human form, proceeds to jump out of the train car, grabs electric wires and zaps himself. And then later on, he's hung by an assassin where he turns into like a heart form.
That's my phone here. Yes, that is it. There's a trigger warning in the beginning. I missed it. There's something. That's not bad. Instruction. No, before. Well, this is old school.
It is old, but it's his first creation, and it gets
This is a good stuff though, man. This is golden age.
yes, and it gets very bloody. Once you kind of skip all the chat scenes and go back to the action, like here. And I think this is where the lady had to kill all the dogs. No, wait, actually, let me show you one scene where it gets super ridiculous. No, she sees the car, but inside, it's actually the assassin waiting for him.
Must be good for having it easier, I guess. Some nice shoes he had on before he died. Whoa! Yep, he's super dead.
Not just that, I think he just gets like stabbed a couple times. Yep.
I'll just make sure. Oh, and his backhanded her in the wall. That's also. Wait, how is he not dead? He cut his throat. Where is the wound? That's much shenanigans. Like, he slashed his throat, there's like blood splatter. There's no one in his throat.
That's what you get for wearing a sweatshirt over your regular T-shirt.
Yes. Oh, jeez.
The old like looking like Fred from Scooby Doo look.
Oh, no, he's got a scarf on.
He gets a scar. And then like he turns into his first form, as you can see right here. He starts coming back to life, and I think if I remember correctly, his eyes turn yellow and his hair turns like blue.
He's like heaving the sword out. The knife doesn't have any blood on it, though. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous because I think an assassin would have kept his knife.
You gotta make it look like a murder scene. If you skip it some more, it gets. Oh, that's
What the
what
hell?
that is. What Bao looks like, and the only way
Is
to.
it a dog with the eyeball missing?
No, that's actually what Bao looks like as a dog form. As a human form, it's much more
Also,
dangerous.
flashback to them.
Yeah, like seeing how it works. It is a very dangerous creature, and it actually kills a lot tiger.
Okay, whoever drew that tiger, have you ever seen an actual tiger? Those are some weird little feet.
No.
How did he cut the tiger in half? Oh, what the hell is that about? Oh god.
And that is actually his first form. First pre-form.
And he melts people by touching them?
Yep.
Oh, wait, he dropped the. Oh no.
That's one of his powers. One of his powers is literally melting
Melts
people.
Jesus,
Yeah.
Mary and Joseph.
And if you go on a little longer into the show, he can actually spawn literal knives out of his forearms.
Okay, that's getting a little OP there. Like a little overpowered.
Oh, you think that's
Okay, I
what
don't know. He just did like 6 black flips for no reason. Like changed direction.
landed on the car that was like already about 5 miles away.
Yeah.
And this is like the most iconic part of it, where he opens it up, grabs the guy's head, and there you
Oh,
go.
melts it. He didn't squish it, he melts it.
No, he melts it.
Yeah, this is like the 1980s heavy metal magazine type of shit right here. Jesus. Yep. He's super dead.
If I can see if I can fast forward to the good old fight scene. This is where he comes back in his actual form.
Well, that was wholesome. If you rip the guy's head off, like the way the human body works, there's attached. He would have picked the guy up by his head. He wouldn't have ripped the head off like that, unless he actually had his hand on the rest of his body and just, went one way or the other. Oh, there we go. He went full Guyver. He did the reverse blades.
That actually, Guyver is another gory anime
Oh,
that I love the
With
hell out
the
of.
live action adaptations.
Which one with David Hayter